I'm so excited that you can join me tonight. And we've got news. We've got great news. We've got happy news. Joe Mauer, our boy Joe Mauer, was elected to the Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Famer. It was close. It was tight. It came down to today. Man, I had butterflies the size of bald eagles when they were announcing that. It was going to be close, man. It was going to be close. And that was making me nervous because, you never know with the baseball writers, especially with the ones that don't publicly share their ballots. So there was some mystery coming in today that added a lot of tension and drama. But Joe Mauer is a Hall of Famer. John, actually, let's just get to that now, John. Since John brought it up, Joe Mauer, congratulations on making it to the Hall of Fame. I want to toast Joe. Actually, it wouldn't be appropriate. It wouldn't be appropriate, to have the beer to toast Joe. No. Joe Mauer. Here's to you, Joe, a toast on behalf of all of Twins territory. You represented the Minnesota Twins well. You represented Minnesota well. You are an incredible ambassador to the game of baseball. And it was a tremendous honor to be able to watch your career. And you had some of the greatest offensive seasons in Minnesota Twins history at the most physically demanding position on the field. We will never forget you. You are incredible. Thank you so much for being a great human being. On top of that, we are so proud of you. We are so proud that you played for our team. Thank you, Joe Mauer. Congratulations. You deserve this. Oh yeah. It's never tasted better. It's never tasted better. Joe, again, here's to you. All right. Had to get that nonsense out of the way first. Again, thank you so much. Thank you so much to everybody for being here. Chris Hannell on a second channel. That's kind of fun to say, actually. How's it going? Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We're going to talk about Joe. I've got some videos lined up. We've got a couple of tweets as well to share that I thought were good. But again, I think the big thing was there was some drama. There was some drama today. I wasn't sure it was going to happen today. And I don't know if you would have asked me, if you would have asked me kind of coming into this winter or over the season last year, I'm not sure how confident I would have been. So I went back, I kind of searched through some of my thoughts, and kind of once it became known that Joe was officially retiring and that had kind of sank in a little bit, this was in the winter of 2018. This is kind of my reaction at the time was, basically that bottom tweet is saying, listen, this guy was one of the best handful of hitters of his generation. We all know the career arc, and it was, incredible early and then faded late due to brain injuries for the most part. But even with that being the case, the only three guys in that sample during Joe's career with a better batting average and a better on-base percentage were Miguel Cabrera, Mike Trout, and Joey Votto. This is taking the good and the bad of Joe Mauer, his entire run there. Incredible. And then I pointed out that I think he makes it easily because the batting titles is the catcher, the MVP. Those rate stats are just incredible. And then, of course, his reputation and him being such a well thought of guy. There are those clauses in the Hall of Fame voting that they do also want you to be, there are character questions as well. And Joe passes all of those with flying colors. So I'm not, I guess I don't know if I would have guessed that he'd get it on the first pass because it's always hard to tell what the writers are going to do. But I'm glad that this happened right away, that he gets in and doesn't have to wait it out. So happy. All right, let's load up some more, Joe. And that's we're going to talk some more, and I'm going to check out some of your comments. We'll chat, but we'll get to some interviews too, but kind of want to break things up with some highlights as well. Here is his first home run. Joe Mauer's first home run on June 6, 2004, back at the Metrodome in the old dusty folded up Metrodome state seats. Pulled for a home run. Yeah, I got to get some sideburns. I don't know if he's going to bring the sideburns back or the beard maybe. I don't know. That would be fun though. At least I'm hoping for a lot of people, yeah, in the crowd at Cooperstown, maybe to have those slap on Joe Mauer sideburns. Very fun. Yeah, John points out Joe's the only AL catcher to win not only one but 3 batting titles. I mean, that kind of is a big headliner. And I'm not even a big batting average guy, but he led the league in on base percentage twice as well. If you want to lean toward that metric, which I typically do, he still did it there as well. So we all know how good of an on base guy Joe was in his career. Again, that's highlights of his very first home run. So many good Joe memories. And if you are around my age, you really grew up, and a lot of your, my era of fan, we were young enough to barely remember kind of some of the World Series runs. So, we know the Kirby Pucketts and all those guys. And of course, a lot of us know even the history before we were born. But Kirby Puckett was it wasn't really tangible. He was more of a superhero, to a little kid. Joe Mauer, I'm only a couple years younger than Joe Mauer. So it was very relatable in a way, especially with him being a Minnesotan and then being able to follow his entire career, like being able to consciously follow his entire career. Again, so rewarding to watch him, and just so thankful that we got to see him. That it was kind of magical that he ended up being a Minnesota Twin at all. And just thankful that obviously the injuries did alter his career, but thankful that we got as much of Joe as we did, and that he played for as long as he did and as well as he did. Here's some more Joe highlights, of him. And I think it might be kind of lost on some people who only remember the late stages of his career, how good of a defensive catcher he was. That one doesn't want to play again. I'm pushing my limits here. We're I had not only have I not live streamed in like 3 or 4 months. I haven't done a ton of these videos in stream before, so you have to bear with me on a couple of these on occasion. But we're gonna keep rolling with some just to feel out the vibes and just cover ourselves in a warm blanket of Joe Mauer. And it's a day to celebrate. It's a day to feel good. Here's one that's, everybody who's been a fan, even recent fans, can remember. Chills. Anytime I think about this, it's just chills. His last game. I mean, what a storybook career in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's some pain in there as well, and some things that are sort of what ifs with Joe Mauer. But what a storybook ending, especially to it. This game, the last game that he played before anybody had known he was retiring, was kind of sinking in the moment here that we realized, even like Dick Bramer didn't have a read on what was truly going on during that game. That was like, again, that was like a unbelievably storybook moment, a game. The things that could turn out that way, it just is unbelievable. And yeah, even just that day to be a part of that was, and to watch that, hard to put into words. I wrote, this was at a time when I was doing most of the game recaps, if not all the game recaps for Twins Daily. So I want to read a little bit from that. Actually, let's loop this one. You have to bear with me again. We're going to try again. We're going to try to get some stuff going again here. Let's see. It's a little grumpy, but I think this would be more interesting to play than looking at my face while I read. All right. That doesn't want to go. We'll try something else. Again, I'm working on some new pitches here. We'll put it that way. It looks like I'm throwing a bullpen. Let's try this one. There we go. All right. So I'm going to read a little bit from my Twins Daily Game Recap on Joe Mauer's last game, which was headlined, "You are appreciated, Joe Mauer. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone?" Joni Mitchell sang that in her 1970 song titled Big Yellow Taxi, and too often those words ring true. There's a vocal sect of Twins territory that will never appreciate what Joe Mauer has done for the Minnesota Twins, both on and off the field. But the fans who showed up Sunday at Target Field made sure he knew his efforts over the years are appreciated. It's important to note that Joe still hasn't decided what's to come in 2019. Some of the speculation as to why Mauer avoided making an announcement earlier was that he wanted to dodge the spotlight. Well, there was no way for Mauer to find shelter from the ovations, applause, and appreciation that was showered down upon him Sunday. And you know what the best part was? He seemed to revel in it. Sundays at Target Field are kids' days, and part of what makes them special is some lucky youngsters get to stand with a player on the field during pregame ceremonies. Well, this time, it was Joe's twin daughters, Emily and Marin, who met him on the field. Prior to his first plate appearance, the White Sox faded into the background to allow Mauer to get the spotlight treatment. Mauer received a standing ovation each time he stepped into the box today, and the stadium erupted when he hit a double in the 7th inning. Pack it in. There's no way you can possibly top that, right? Right? Wait. And then it goes into the highlight of him taking behind the plate. If this is it, what a way to go out. Mauer will have a growing family to enjoy, and there will surely be plenty of updates to the tributes that adorn Target Field. Mauer's number will join those who have been retired. There will be a Gate 7 established, and a statue will be erected of him. A bar named in his honor? Well, don't hold your breath on that one. Maybe a milk bar. No matter what's next, Joe Mauer's legacy is secure. I'm sure he appreciates that his teammates helped end the season with a victory. That was my thoughts at the end of a long season talking about Joe Mauer. We lost the video, but dramatic effect. The fade to black. Aaron saying he was there. I mean, I was not there, but I so appreciate that crowd, and it's true. Time after time after time, multiple players, multiple storylines, whatever. If you want to know the pulse of this fan base, if you want to know what real Minnesota Twins fans feel, look at what's going on at Target Field. Joe Mauer was beloved his entire career. Yeah, there, a lot of people. We're going to talk about this in a sec. I want to keep the focus on Joe first, but we're going to talk about haters more. But Joe had a lot of haters. But man, he got the biggest ovations on that game. And again, we didn't know he was retiring. Nobody knew in the moment what was happening. And I'm so glad that the crowd kind of rose up in that moment as well. And kind of got the gravity of what was happening on that day, even though we weren't for sure, and yeah, I mean, we're going to, again, I'm going to address the haters. We're going to address the haters, but, I could just kind of want to point out that I think that's a very small, albeit vocal, a very small portion of the Twins fan base. Were the vocal Joe Mauer haters. But, and I'm probably pushing it here, but I do want to bring in a video of some of his interview on MLB Network. So just a heads up to anybody listening on headphones. Again, we're trying new things here. I've had some difficulties with metering out the volumes on these. So you may want to turn your headphones down a little bit. I'm going to bring in Joe Mauer's interview. Hopefully it doesn't completely blast you guys. And hopefully actually the audio comes in. But here we go. This is Joe Mauer after he was inducted.
Sure do. Obviously, I don't take this announcement lightly. And just seeing the graphic of the two catchers on the first ballot are two of my favorites, and admired those guys and look up to those guys, and got to compete against Pudge for years there in Detroit. But just have the utmost respect for the Hall of Fame, the players that went ahead of me and done great things, and I'm just so kind of all over the place with emotions, but can't wait to get there and to show my kids some of the history of this game, this beautiful game.
Hey, special guest, is there something you'd like to say to Joe Mauer?
Hey, buddy. On behalf of myself and your former teammates, everybody that got to know you real well, congratulations. This is well deserved. You're a true first ballot Hall of Famer. You were a tremendous teammate. Someone that was a joy, riding to the ballpark on the road in a cab or going down Grand Avenue, and then being roommates back in the day. But, talk to you. It's amazing. Obviously you were nervous. I was maybe more nervous than you were leading up to this thing, but it was truly an honor to watch you work. You were the best at your position. You were the best at what you did. And really, I was tearing up today when I got the news. It's just incredible. We're so happy for you and so proud, and hopefully we can get a little better tea time in Cooperstown this summer.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, brother. And I appreciate you putting on the shirt. It looks good on you.
The big smile, man. The big smile from Mauer. That's so nice to see. So that was a little bit of the interview. Lots of great stuff out there from, the Twins. Lots of great stuff out there from MLB Network. I urge you to go check out some of that stuff. There's a really great piece that I think John Morosi did that or helped with that Justin Morneau did the voiceover on. That was just tremendous too. That was just great stuff. Great stuff. So Joe's a Hall of Famer. Joe is a Hall of Famer. He's got the little badge on his baseball reference page already. That was probably the biggest smile I've ever seen Mauer have. They also shared, I saw him getting the actual call, and it was about as anticlimactic as you could imagine. Joe was clearly emotional, but in that sort of very Joe Minnesotan reserved, you could tell though, if you know Joe well and have watched him after all these years, that he was kind of like Chris says, it was an outburst of emotion. But from the outside looking in, it's like, wow, that was all the excited he was from getting the Hall of Fame. Huh? But again, wanted to make sure that on this stream we came in, we kept the focus on Joe for a while and toasted him with my fine china and showed him the appreciation he deserves. That's what today is all about. That's the happy news. But I gotta share. I couldn't put this any better. Than my buddy Panda Pete on Twitter. I was thinking about this after it happened, but I can't put this any better. Earmuffs on the kids. There's a little bit of language on here. To all of you mouth-breathing, unshowered knuckle draggers who told me Joe Mauer was overrated, overpaid, and every other dumbass comment you could think of to diminish his contributions to the Twins for 15 seasons, eat a shit sandwich. No notes. Couldn't say it any better. This is obviously Joe's. Again, I want to keep the focus on Joe. This is Joe's accomplishment. But I think all of us who are tired of this bullshit Joe Mauer hate from inside our own fan base, you people, your stance and your views and your negativity towards Joe Mauer is disgusting. Disgusting. You are making us look bad. You do not represent us. We are tired of you. Go away. Keep Joe Mauer's name out your mouth. He is a Hall of Famer. Shut your mouth about your Joe Mauer hate. Okay? We've had enough. Guy is in the Hall of Fame. So, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but your opinion is shit. Keep it to yourself. Oh, that's definitely part of this for me, is like the justification. It's not easy to say the least. It's not easy to get into the Hall of Fame. That was Joe. That interview that I shared, that was Joe kind of reacting to becoming only the third catcher to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, along with, I think it was Johnny Bench and Ivan Rodriguez. And he was kind of, commenting on how those were two guys he really looked up to. Obviously two incredible, probably the best offensive catcher of all time and the best defensive catcher of all time. Both those guys could do the other thing well as well. And I think that graphic said that, Joe was like the 20th catcher elected to the Hall of Fame. I understand he played a lot of first base. But I think for a lot of his career, a lot of people didn't fully appreciate how unusual and insane it was for him to be doing what he was doing as a catcher. Yeah. I mean, Gabriel pointed out he might be more appreciated outside of the fan base, which is just the craziest concept. I can't remember if it was Aaron Gleeman or if it was Dan Hayes, but I think it was one of the Athletic guys that they were talking about how some of the other national writers at the Athletic were super weirded out about all the disses for coming from Minnesota about Joe Mauer. Like, they would write their Hall of Fame articles, and there would be like Twins fans being like, "Oh, Joe Mauer's not a Hall of Famer." And they were just like completely blindsided by the fact that, the Minnesota boy would have haters in his own fan base. It is, and yeah, I mean, beyond that, just like overwhelmingly regarded as like the nicest guy ever. And that's shown time and time again. Yeah. So sorry to steer, I usually don't like to elevate those voices, and I'm not going to. We shared Pete's tweet because that's amazing. We're not going to go here and drag people through the mud. And it's not just fans, it's media. That's maybe less surprising, but just as gross. Is that's where a lot of these people were getting these takes from, was from media, taking dumps on Joe. So that's, I don't know. I'm sure Joe saw some of that stuff. But, I think he knew deep down overwhelmingly how we as a fan base feel about him. And, if he ever had any questions in the back of his mind, this is validating. I don't know that he did. I'm sure he wished his career would have turned out differently, without the injuries. But if he ever had any doubts, in the back of his mind, or where his legacy stands, those are gone. So I'm really happy for Joe Mauer. Jwick 13 asks, who do I think inducts him? Maybe Paul Molitor. I think that would be a good guess. Fellow Cretan-Durham Hall, St. Paul guy, Hall of Famer, managed him. Like Paul Molitor would be a good guess. Justin Morneau certainly would be a good guess too. It's really fun that Morneau has been involved in a lot of this stuff. Again, he did the voiceover on a really great feature that he and John Morosi worked on. Tremendous. That was on like the pre-show, but it's out there on social media. I think the Twins actually just shared it recently on their socials, so check that out. Got to be something. We broke the curse and Joe got in. Yeah, man. It's coming up all Twins, baby. This is our year. Oh, it's good news. It's happy news. Again, I'm so glad. I'm so glad for Joe. Yeah, Aaron, perfect. Perfectly sums it up. Great player, great person. Makes me proud to be a Minnesota Twins fan. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry for going negative. I usually try to take the high road, but sometimes, man, people gotta let them know. So yeah, we took a look at some highlights. We took a look at that video. This one, we're going back to this one. we're gonna play some more Joe. You don't need to look at my dumb face while I'm trying to read through your comments. Yeah, it was stressful. Was anybody else? I thought it was kind of a coin flip because I knew his number was going to drop quite a bit from these ballots that come in late. I knew there weren't going to be as many votes for him. He was up at about 83%, I think. I mean, Dave, I guess, Dave's saying the only thing that I have a problem with is I never thought him as a first ballot Hall of Famer, but definitely a Hall of Famer. I kind of alluded to this earlier. I'm not so sure I would have guessed he would have got in on this first time, and it was by like 4 ballots or something. So it was just barely. But I think it's kind of the whole concept. Like, if you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. It's kind of silly to me. Like, I don't know. Obviously, they do put certain emphasis on, whether you were a first ballot or not. Is that legit? I don't know. I think it's kind of silly. If you were a voter and thought he was a Hall of Famer, I guess I don't get why you wouldn't put him on there the first time around. You know what I mean? To like avoid him getting on the first ballot. But I think that was a lot of these late ballots that came in that weren't made public. I would bet you that's what a lot of people did. And I don't talk about the Hall of Fame often. I don't think about the Hall of Fame often. I think it's a frustrating process because the logic is so wobbly. Obviously being someone who grew up watching a lot of the steroid era and a lot of the, in my opinion, best baseball players of all time aren't in the Hall of Fame, kind of makes things pretty silly too, so I think I understand what you're saying, but I think kind of the concept is kind of silly and we would maybe be better served to sort of let go of that. But, it's water under the bridge at this point, guys. The first ballot Hall of Famer. We're going to play some more of the hits. Yeah, and Dave points out, it is bittersweet to think of what could have been if he and Morneau could have stayed healthy. I mean, there's obviously other guys we could throw into that mix from this era as well. Tremendous players, both had MVP seasons. Both are just awesome dudes. It's so cool that they're still involved in the organization and kind of front and center at times as well. But yeah, as it stands, even with Joe, kind of having a second half of his career that wasn't as nearly as impressive. Although Matthew Trueblood did a nice job on an article that's up at Baseball Prospectus. I think it was just published yesterday or today. That kind of highlighted the silver linings to Joe's first base career and how it's obviously not remembered as fondly as his peak, but he was a plenty productive guy. It's not like he was completely useless. Some guys are, some guys at the tail end of their career really are, below average, a complete drain on their teams. And Joe was never like that. I think that's part of why he retired too, is he didn't want to get to that point. Also, all the injuries, it added up, and, young kids at home and a family and lots of other endeavors. And I'm sure it was frustrating. It had to have been really frustrating. And you can say with Justin too, it has to be really hard when you're used to being able to compete at a certain level. And then, that gets taken away from you. And this is the top level. These are the best players in the world. So it only takes a little bit. You lose a little bit of your game, and it's hard to get up to that level again. Ryan, I wish I was alive for the steroid era. It was pretty crazy, man. It was wild. I don't have that one. And you know what? I'll say this. I think that one's a little bit overrated, Aaron. The behind the back grab at Nationals Park. It showed how kind of smooth that Joe Mauer is. But it was kind of I think more of a gimmicky highlight than a lot of this other stuff. Again, I like that there's a lot of defensive highlights in here because Joe was not just a catch like Mike Piazza type catcher who, yeah, he was a catcher, but he was mostly a great hitter who could get by at the position. I think time has been more positive to Mike Piazza's defense. I think he might have been a little bit ahead of his time as a pitch framer. But Joe was a remarkably good catcher, which you shouldn't be any surprise at how great of an athlete he is. An incredible. They've been really doing a good job of this Hall of Fame ramp up, highlighting how incredible of an athlete he is, and obviously a huge high school recruit as a football player. I think a 2-time All-State basketball player. I remember watching Joe Mauer Cretin-Durham Hall football highlights on like the prep sports shows, and just seeing him long before he was drafted and before he was a Twin. So this guy has been in, for a lot of us, was in our conscious for even before he was even drafted. So it's been just a really fun journey to be along, following his career. So happy for him, so happy for his family on this day. Again, this really cements his legacy. Yeah, and a happy day, great day, good news, fun news. Yeah, and it's some of these highlights and Joe making the Hall of Fame. There's no denying. I'm not even going to deny that his second half of his career obviously wasn't as much fun. And there's reason for that. He had a bunch of concussions that makes things difficult, especially with his skill set. But man, good God, was he amazing. And I think a lot of these baseball writers who voted for the Hall of Fame have great memory, which is something I can't really say for myself. My memory isn't very good. I think they a lot of them, the things that Joe Mauer did earlier in his career and his peaks really stuck in their minds. And obviously how good of a person he is and how well thought of he is around the game. Obviously, I think also props him up as well. So that's a big deal. And, I think Tom Verducci on the Hall of Fame show did a really good job. He kind of made it sound like, obviously Joe, he was kind of shocked that there was even like a debate on whether or not Joe Mauer was a Hall of Famer, or that, it was sort of on the brink. Was he going to get in? Was he not going to get in? Tom Verducci was just like, how could you not vote for Joe Mauer in the Hall of Fame? That was kind of a refreshing perspective from him. I enjoyed that conversation. That was a great show. I'm sure a lot of that stuff is available to watch on replay on MLB. Even if you don't have MLB Network, they're really good about getting stuff out that you can watch on MLB. If you go there, or on twins.com, on social, obviously there'll be all that stuff. So I encourage you, we'll wrap up soon here, and I encourage you to just keep the Joe love going. There's that walk-off homer you hit. Keep the Joe love going and go check those videos out. Especially that Justin Morneau narrated John Morosi one was really great. Really great. Dave asks, how many players wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame that are in the Hall of Fame because of the steroid era? That's a tricky question. I think what he's trying to ask is, there are probably guys in there that took steroids. So, we don't know. So I always find that difficult to hold that against some of especially the guys that never tested positive. It's tough. It's tough. I'm opening myself up to some Hall of Fame talk, even though this is probably like the only time I'll have a bigger picture Hall of Fame discussion. Because again, I just find it kind of frustrating, and I don't really love that. It was fun to follow, Joe's ballots and how he was tracking. And, there's what is that? Not Mr. Tibbs on Twitter that does such a great job following everything, but it gets pretty old. Every single ballot that comes out, people are freaking out one way or the other, and it's hundreds of ballots and every day, and it just kind of wears down after a while. I was a little tired after a while of that, and that's every Hall of Fame cycle. Even the one with Joe. I'm just glad he's in. Happy he's in on the first shot. Happy for him. Yeah, a lot of guys look really young in some of these highlights, some of his teammates. Yeah, it's too bad the Twins couldn't put together some more complete teams around him. Even, in the Metrodome era when and really the first year at Target Field, they were so kind of star heavy. It was Mauer, Morneau, Santana, guys like that. The top of the roster was amazing, and they just couldn't put enough around him. But obviously, those years were still plenty fun. I had a great time making the postseason, winning lots of games, and then there was just like a really long era at the end of his career where the Twins were just terrible. Sad that he couldn't have had more success as a team, but that's not Joe's fault. As a kind of an ultimate team game, baseball, one guy can only do so much. Yeah, and someone else, I think that looks like that came up in the chat. Yeah, World Series, you can't hold that against any individual player. That's such a team accomplishment. Maybe you want to give guys extra credit that win World Series or have like big World Series moments. I'm okay with that, like the extra credit part. I don't really like docking a guy for not winning a championship or anything, I don't really like that concept. That's another thing kind of that can creep into these Hall of Fame discussions. Oh, that's a good question. Who do I think is the next Twins player with a realistic shot at the Hall of Fame? Probably Royce Lewis. Although his early career injuries have really hurt him there. You really have to have a long career, and it helps a lot to get up early. So maybe it's Walker Jenkins. I think he's going to be up early. I think it's too early to be this. I'm way too. Somebody's got to get me to pump the brakes on my Walker Jenkins excitement. I'm like so far ahead of myself with that guy. But it's super hard to get into Hall of Fame, man. It is like the upper 1% of big leaguers, and just having a big long major league career is like impossible. So to make it to the Hall of Fame is just like, unthinkable. It's really hard to imagine. I think Joe Nathan should have had more of a look there. I think relievers is really difficult. We're seeing this with Billy Wagner. Relievers are really difficult to try to figure out how to factor them into the Hall of Fame. But for a long time, Joe Nathan was the second best reliever in all of baseball behind Mariano Rivera. That was years and years and years and years that Joe Nathan was the literal second best reliever in baseball, only to the greatest reliever of all time. And I think he's underappreciated. And I think part of that is, unfortunately, his peak was with the Twins. And I think he kind of got a little bit overshadowed, unfortunately. Oh, yeah, Carlos Correa. Carlos Correa's got a shot. He was a guy that came up really young. He's had a lot of postseason success with that. There's that extra credit. Really, really looking forward to how he comes back, from having that Achilles. That is an injury that reoccurs. So, keep that in mind. But do I realistically think Pablo Lopez could be on a Hall of Fame track? That's really tough. Probably not. I mean, what did Johan Santana fall off on his first ballot? Which a guy who has 2 Cy Youngs should be 3. That's just ridiculous. Just the starting pitching bar. I talked about relievers. That's hard to kind of judge because that's such a newer, thing. Baseball hasn't really had relievers for that long, so we don't really know how to contextualize them in the Hall of Fame. These are kind of all Hall of Fame topics that kind of frustrate me about the Hall of Fame. I don't think we're properly understanding how to value starting pitchers now either. And I don't think Pablo Lopez, Joan Duran, that's not a bad call out, Zachary. If he keeps this up. Yeah, Pablo, probably not. I don't know. I don't know who would you, Kershaw should, Verlander. But I think that's the kind of career you have to have to, they're looking at a long, healthy career where it goes on forever and there's multiple Cy Young wins. I just think it's really skewed toward, the traditional starting pitcher numbers, counting stats. And I think maybe that's going to change. Maybe that's going to adjust itself, but, and just pitchers are just getting hurt so often. And then, whether or not they can come back is such a toss up. We would have guessed Steven Strasburg would have been a future Hall of Famer, and he's done, it's sad. But yeah, I think at a certain point, they're going to have to figure out how to recalibrate. Yeah. Scherzer, Aaron, that's a good one to add to. Yeah. I think and then that's what you have to do. So do I think Pablo Lopez, I mean, that's a really high bar. He could do it. But Ryan Chris Sale's peak is insane. And I agree with you. I don't think he's probably going to be viewed as a Hall of Famer because, unless he has some kind of a late career peak here with Atlanta, it's so tough. So tough. All right. Good talk. Yeah, I managed to talk about the Hall of Fame for a while without getting super pissed off about it. I don't hate the Hall of Fame, but some of it is frustrating. It certainly feels good to see Joe get in on the first time. I think maybe I don't understand too how some of the writers sort of apply some of the character clauses, and I think some of those helped Joe Mauer. I think they should have. A guy widely regarded as one of the nicest guys ever in baseball. So, kudos to them for giving him kind of looks like maybe an extra credit, although still the maybe the best pure hitting catcher of all time. Certainly had arguably the most impressive peak as a catcher, I think. And I think Jaws, which is Jay Jaffe's Hall of Fame calculation system, has Joe as the 7th best catcher of all time. And I know he didn't always catch. He played first base toward the end there, but he's primarily a catcher. Jaws looks at him as a catcher. So if you don't think the 7th best catcher of all time should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, I think that's a you problem. All right. Oh yeah, did Torrey Hunter get the 5% to stay on? No, we didn't talk about Torrey Hunter yet, Tristan. Actually, I got caught up in this, and then getting ready to stream. He's got as far as Torrey getting in, I think that's going to be really difficult. I mean, if Andrew Jones isn't getting in, that guy might be the best defensive center fielder ever. Jones, that is. If he can't get in, Torrey's going to have a hard time. But that's good. Torrey got over 5. So Torrey staying on the ballot again. That's good. That's a long climb that he has ahead of him. Probably not going to get in, but still on the ballot. So that was one of the other Twins storylines. But obviously Joe getting in. Again, we toasted him. We did the milk toast with the fine china. Appreciated Joe. We dragged the haters. You are not welcome. You do not represent this fan base, Joe Mauer haters. You are not welcome. Shut your mouths. Oh, he's overrated. He's on the Hall of Fame. The Baseball Writers of America put him in the Hall. Get over it. Let the rest of us appreciate this guy and shut your mouths. All right. We should end on that before I go on another rant about that. I really appreciate you hanging out. It was good to be back in the live streams. It's been a long time. Hopefully we'll have some more reason to do these with maybe some news, maybe some signings. If you're going to Twins Fest, have fun. If you're going to be going to Cooperstown, have fun. I'm sure there's a lot of people scrambling to make some travel plans on that. That's very cool. But again, thanks for hanging out. Really appreciate it. Congratulations, Joe Mauer. We'll talk again soon.